So lately there's been one topic with a stranglehold on two fandoms. Death Battle's Hulk vs. Godzilla. A great battle that came down to one definitive conclusion, in a battle of the unkillable and unstoppable Hulk and Godzilla Ultima. Bruce Banner's mind is able to quell the beast and save the world. But is it really the true conclusion? I'd say no. Let me be upfront before you click off, please. I'm not a biased Godzilla fan here to claim this was rigged, that they lowballed Godzilla, that they got their facts wrong, well, kinda, or that Godzilla should have won. I'm here to say that, by the internal logic of the episode presented, that Bruce Banner winning is only a scenario that could happen, not would happen. Let's stomp on in. To start with, let's sum up what happened. We start with Godzilla on the rampage, only for Hulk to show up and, after some amount of fighting, a powerful attack from the Green Scar manages to silently defeat Godzilla, only for it to suddenly become Godzilla Ultima without much explanation, and just atomize Hulk only to be revived through the Green Door. We then get a small time skip to days later where Hulk has a glove device built by Bruce Banner, effectively his own version of the orthogonal diagonalizer, and charges straight at Godzilla. Then we get a montage, parallel in nature to Jet Jaguar PP's act of evolving through time, of using the device, failing, reviving, and trying again until Bruce manages to find the right code and defeat Ultima once and for all. Now what's wrong with this outcome? On paper, nothing. But in practice, you have to ask yourself one question. Would the plan still work if Godzilla actually attempted to stop this? Sure, we see it fire off some lasers, but what I mean is, why didn't Ultima use its manipulation of reality to prevent this from happening? Death Battle establishes that it's likely that Hulk himself will be immune to his ability. That's well and good, but that protection doesn't apply to the device itself. In Godzilla's singular point, Jet Jaguar PP was able to do what it did because of the nature of time itself being used. The code to prevent the Ashihara catastrophe, Ultima's destruction of the universe, was created by fusing together the AI of Young within Jet Jaguar and Pelops 2, then creating practically an infinite amount of descendants looping in time until we get a Jet Jaguar who became the code itself. In Ultima's perspective, it's blind to what happened as this was the first time it was used. It only has a vision of the future leading to the confrontation of Jet Jaguar, only for the vision to suddenly be cut off in its defeat. This works because of Ultima's ignorance. Its vision of the future didn't matter because it doesn't understand what was going to happen. In comparison, Bruce and Hulk are simply attacking over and over again until it works. Without a way to actually build up to the correct code within the first instance or so, maintaining the actual secret behind what's being done, Ultima should be aware of what they're doing with this device over time, especially since Ultima's future sight will allow it to know that eventually one of these attempts will end it. And if you want to go with that this is actually a version of the entity that already went through the events of Godzilla's singular point, it would have already been defeated by Jet Jaguar in a similar and familiar fashion, along with the novel letting us know that it can see into the point of views of any of its kaiju creations. Godzilla is the only one it controls directly, but it has peered into the eyes of Rodan. That would include having the viewpoint of Salunga, who had encountered your orthogonal diagonalizer multiple times and even learned its weakness of needing to be in archetype to work. So that means unless Bruce gets really lucky and gets the code practically on the first try, Ultima is very likely to learn what's going on and put its focus on stopping it from ever happening. And with its massive influence over reality, it doesn't matter if the Hulk himself is immune to it, because there's no way the device Bruce creates has the same protection Hulk does. If Ultima seeks it, the plan is doomed to fail before it can even begin. I will say there is one big wrinkle. According to the novelization, the entity's actions are guided by a preordained future. While it can see upcoming events, Godzilla doesn't do anything to actually change what it sees. Instead, it builds towards a set fate. So seemingly, if Godzilla Ultima sees its own defeat by Hulk, it will allow that to come to pass. Which I think is a surefire win for Hulk if you want to go that route. That would simply just be the animation we have. However, there's two counters to this. For one, Death Battle runs by some certain guidelines. One of them being along the lines of making the characters involved bloodlusted. Even if they're characters who would never willingly kill, that aspect of them is removed for the purpose of the debate. So with that in mind, Ultima allowing itself to lose seems like something that would change in place of a desire to seek Hulk's destruction instead. While I can't definitively prove it, I don't think the entity's goal to fulfill the future is involuntary. Not only is this a being with an unfathomable control over our reality, but the nature of Godzilla's singular point is about changing the future. We know many timelines and potential futures exist. We even see many paths that currently exist in the super dimension calculator, which only increases the more active the singular point became. With so many potential futures, this contradicts the idea of a set fate that can't be altered. So if we remove the entity's willingness to stick by the rules of destiny, it can see the future and work to change it. This is only made more apparent with my second counter. This is a composite Godzilla in this debate. So this isn't simply Godzilla Ultima as is. This is a Godzilla with its personality and its influence melded with the desires of every other Godzilla. And I don't know about you, but I have a hard time believing any other Godzilla would simply follow those restrictions and let itself lose. Next, let's talk about something the animation really failed to present. Like I said before, this is a composite Godzilla. In the end, the first half of the battle is simply a version of Godzilla -1 with Heisei powers, while the second half was Godzilla Ultima with some Shin powers. To say again, the main intention of this isn't really to say a full composite should stop Hulk or anything. But if we go by the goal of having Godzilla make sure it never loses to Bruce's orthogonal diagonalizer, there's more that can be done. In particular, let's draw attention to Shin Godzilla. The evolution factor was severely underutilized here. According to Ben Singer in the Q&A for this death battle, Shin Godzilla's evolutions weren't used because of two reasons. One being that Shin's evolutions are incompatible with Ultima's evolutions, which doesn't really make sense since this is a composite, you don't need to take into account those protoforms, and that they didn't want to create a Godzilla that doesn't exist yet. Which I can agree with as a reason to exclude Shin Godzilla from a composite. Shin Godzilla's ability to evolve is pretty much a no-limits fallacy. Its incredible power to adapt is practically unlimited, meaning that a matchup of this ability in mind is impossible to objectively determine because it's way too broad. However, they still put Shin as part of the composite anyway. That means this Godzilla should have that ability, no discussion. Meaning that Ultima should be able to go through various kinds of changes. None should be able to help it beat the Hulk, but it can help keep the tie going on forever. While these evolutions aren't quick, they aren't slow either. Shin went through 2 full transformations within 4 hours, about 2 hours apart each. If we can say Ultima can gain some kind of adaptation every 2 hours in an eternal battle, that just makes it harder and harder for Bruce to try to work around getting the plan to work, as Godzilla becomes more and more unpredictable to fight as it constantly morphs its body. In fact, Shin Godzilla is hypothesized to be able to have its cells grow to become their own Godzillas. If Ultima inherits this, that just means more Godzillas to fight. Or we can even take a rare advantage inherited from the TriStar Godzilla. Eggs. Dozens of eggs. If Bruce is allowed to step away from the battle to build a device every time Hulk dies, Godzilla should be given that same free time to potentially spawn a nest. The possibilities just grow more endless between a growing army and endless evolution. And while we're talking about what should be involved with composite Godzilla, while I'm willing to oblige that the entity likely can't enter the below place on its own, since there's no reason to think it can, I'm gonna focus on a certain thing Death Battle intentionally overlooked. The Marvel comic Godzilla vs. Hulk released this year. As noted in one of the black boxes, they decided to label this comic as Elseworld and excluded it.
Yeah, so 616 Godzilla is kind of a weird one to bring in because that kind of goes back into the idea of like, well, that's like its own separate thing. And also a lot of those iterations, it can be argued, are like a little separate from like the 616 universe. Some of them aren't, some of them aren't. So it doesn't quite line up with like everything else Godzilla is. It's the same thing as like, well, there's this other Godzilla that can literally make dreams reality so that he walks on rainbows. And I'm like, well, all right, is that gonna really be part of our argument?
To basically sum that clip up, Ben here equated using this Godzilla as using what's essentially a joke Godzilla. Like if they were to seriously incorporate Godzilla abilities and feats. While I can agree to exclude absurd stuff like that or the Godzilla comic, I completely don't buy excluding these Marvel one-shots. They're only considered Elseworld for Godzilla in that they're not the same as the 616 Marvel Godzilla, but the individual one-shots themselves are no more different than taking from the IDW Godzilla comics. These are still fully fledged incarnations of Godzilla. There is no good reason to just ignore what they're capable of. And if you want to bring up no crossovers, they brought up Snow Godzilla from Chikelion the movie. A movie based on an anime train mecha that not only features Godzilla and Hatsune Miku, but also Neon Genesis Evangelion. No crossovers, my Okay, moving on. There are people who say incorporating Marvel Godzilla means the entity can access the below place outright, simply by existing in the Marvel cosmology. I 100% disagree, since even if we assume the entity would exist in Marvel, I don't see any reason to believe it will exist in any of the higher layers, let alone be close to the below place. Instead, I want to focus on the Gamma-enhanced Godzilla. TLDR, in Godzilla vs. Hulk, Hulk willingly gives an injured Godzilla his blood so that it becomes a Gamma Mutate Godzilla. Because of how the lore works, being a Gamma Mutate means Godzilla now has a connection to the below place. From what I understand, you have to die first to appear there, but given the entity's wide range of influence, I can reasonably assert that it could push through itself. Snow Godzilla is able to teleport between dimensions, so perhaps that can factor in too? And what happens after this point, who knows? There are many factors that can happen, such as if Godzilla is even able to destroy the below place like it can in normal universes, or if destroying Hulk here can matter in some way. In the same black box as the one that dismisses the crossover, they say Godzilla being the below place would disconnect it from the entity. I don't think that's a claim they can actually make, since we don't know if that's a link that can sever at all given it's such a higher being. Once again, even Ben's own word has this purely as an assumption.
So we actually had a tab in the episode about this. Because the ultimate entity can't reach the below place, I mean, again, we don't understand everything about the ultimate entity, that's kind of the point. But theoretically, it would just cut off, right? It would just now be just a normal Godzilla hanging out in the below place. And if you killed it, then it would be dead, right? So the entity wouldn't be able to like interact with it essentially.
But let's humor this. Say the entity loses that connection. That just means there's a rampaging, super powerful Godzilla in the below place. It likely wouldn't have the future sight or reality warping ability, but it'd still be Godzilla Ultima, or even beyond that with the Gamma power, depending on how long or not Hulk takes to remove it. Hell, with Shin's evolution or Tristar's mass reproduction, you could have multiple Godzillas at once with this scenario. Imagine if it's possible one Godzilla becomes a Gamma Mutate, and then just spreads that around with its blood. Even more so, having Gamma means Godzilla could be subject to the one below all. While this isn't good for the entity's goals, it could be good just for having a Godzilla that can beat Hulk by becoming the puppet of the one below all. Now this is straying away heavily from the point of the death battle, I know. This is just to present all the possibilities of what gets in Bruce's way of finishing the cycle. And yeah, that's pretty much my stance as a Godzilla fan with this battle. As grave a conclusion Bruce has witnessed, I think his chance of success is so incredibly low, the result should have just been a tie. Bruce is the only one with a clear definitive win condition, but that win is such a hard climb. With that being said, I think you're perfectly valid for accepting the battle as it is. This is just me rambling my own thoughts, so if you really like the original outcome, who am I to say you're wrong for liking it? But I'm here to have my fun too, so here's one more bonus. They say here Godzilla's minimum height is 50 meters, as 165 feet. 50 meters is actually 164 feet. Not only that, but their visual is Godzilla -1. Funny enough, Yamazaki has said this Godzilla is actually considered 50.1 meters. They say Godzilla's minimum weight is 20,000 tons. Even though not only is the 50-meter tall Godzilla Earth only 10,000 tons, the real lightest Godzilla is the TriStar Godzilla at a mere 500 tons.
In most iterations, Godzilla is a rare theropod that went dormant for millions of years before nuclear bombs mutated it into a gargantuan radioactive monster.
In terms of mainline Godzilla, this only really applies to Heisei -1. Most Godzillas have different origins than this.
His breathing laser can even break through dimensions!
Snow Godzilla's breath does not break through dimensions. It only turns adults into kids and gives them amnesia.
Or how he picked up and threw Biolante!
Ooh, close. This is actually Neo Biolante, a clone of the original.
And Godzilla Earth, who grew over 1,000 feet tall across 2,000 years,
こちらでは20年、そちらでは2万年ぶりの再会だ。
In Godzilla vs. Megalon, Gigan flew from the M Hunter Nebula to Earth in 24 seconds.
I'm only going to correct this since they use this speed feat as a way to show how fast Godzilla is in comparison. Gigan is shown traveling in space in a diamond form. Even in this example for Godzilla vs. Megalon, this shouldn't reflect Gigan's normal speed.
Even the Oxygen Destroyer could not permanently end the first Godzilla. His ghost possessed a robot, his bones summoned another Godzilla, and he rose as an undead revenant hell-bent on destroying Japan.
The GMK Godzilla is the second of its timeline. This is not the 54 Godzilla revived. They say that Godzilla has survived multiple black holes. Not inaccurate, but a misconception. In Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, both black holes failed to reach Godzilla. The characters even say so.
違います。東京の地下に震源が発生した。
The only time Godzilla has had to survive a black hole was in Godzilla the Half-Century War. This Gorath was not a planet buster. It is much smaller than the fake one we see earlier in the film. Also, Godzilla does not kill every kaiju on the planet. Manila and Mothra are still around. This black box brings up the theory that Singular Point is meant to be connected to the wider Godzilla multiverse. While cool, this is purely headcanon. And I point this one out. Hey everybody, this is Malefic King. Just going a bit off script here, just to say thank you for watching. If you made it this far, hopefully that means you enjoyed what I had to say. I've been meaning to make a video kind of like this for a long time. I'm a bit of a rambler by nature, and this seemed like a good first video to try to do, given how much of a spicy topic it is. If you really did like it, please show your support in the comments below, leave a like. See you next time.